As the lockdowns continue to cripple the economy, a clear class divide is emerging between the haves and the have-nots when it comes to the issue of reopening businesses. So far, many people are wondering, just is that another reason to keep it down? And really, is it fair to have this economy closed at the expense of those who are actually suffering the most? Heritage Foundation Senior Advisor Genevieve Wood joins us now to discuss. Genevieve, it's always great having you on. You know, this is one of the parts of this reopening campaign that's bothered me from the very beginning. These entities that typically say that they stand up for black communities, Hispanic communities, poor people, small businesses, have been the ones who have ridiculed the White House and other administrations, local administrations, for wanting to reopen the economy.
Well, Charles, I think you're seeing, unfortunately, what we often see out of D.C. and out of a lot of politicians, which is they think they know what to do and what's best for everybody else, but then they don't end up living under the same circumstances or the same laws. I mean, whether you're talking about Obamacare, that lawmakers forced most of middle America to live with it, yet they had government-sponsored insurance that they didn't have to worry about. They could keep their doctors. Or you're looking at things like school choice, where, oh, here's where your children should go to school. You as a parent don't have a choice. Yet those same lawmakers send all their kids, many of them, to private schools. We're in the same scenario again. They're not taking into consideration that they still have their jobs. They're still getting a paycheck, and yet they know better for you. You need to stay home, whether that means you're losing your job or your small business is never going to recover. It's kind of the same old top-down mentality that government and these educators and scientists know better than everybody else.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that, because someone had asked me or questioned me on whether, they said, do you believe in science? I said, yeah, I believe in science, but I got a problem with the scientists, right? Because they're human beings, they have agendas, right. and a lot of times their jobs are secure, as they're telling us to wait for a vaccine. There's no way in the world our country could actually wait for a vaccine. And then I look at California. They've gotten the lion's share of this PPP money for small businesses, and yet they won't let them go back to work. And I think that's unfair. You know, this PPP comes from the taxpayers, and all taxpayers chip in there. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Do you think some of these places just think maybe the federal government will foot the bill until we're ready to reopen?
Well, that's what they're used to. They're used to the spigot never being turned off. And, if you listen to Nancy Pelosi and others, they just want to keep shuffling out the money. But look, I mean, what we know is that just like everything else, every county, every town, every state is not the same. And even within a state, things are not the same. The Heritage Foundation is part of, as you probably know, Charles, has put together the National Coronavirus Recovery Commission. We put out over 250 recommendations. And one of the most recent ones we put forward was that not just the federal government, but governors need to be looking at this by county level, zip code by zip code level. Maybe small businesses in the very heart of New York, maybe there's still some issues there. I don't know. I'm not in New York. But I have to believe there's parts of New York that it would be just fine if hair salons and gyms and restaurants were able to open, even though keeping, some of the precautions in place, but that they're able to open. Everybody should not be living by the same rules when the landscape is not the same everywhere you look. And so I think, people really need to take a look at how do we look at our local communities and allow our mayors and localities to start making more of these decisions.
Well, we're simpatico on that, because I did a piece on this yesterday, and the 10012 zip code in Greenwich Village should be open. Maybe you wait on the 10468 zip code, but they should not be under the same platform. Genevieve, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Charles.